Welcome to the Well-Worshipped Man podcast, where men learn to build unshakable presence, become the rock in their relationship, and shape a legacy that lasts beyond their years. Here, we explore the path to sacred masculinity through humble power, daily devotion, and unwavering integrity.
Thanks, baby. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about leadership and what that looks like in a relationship. And most of the conversations that you hear are about how a man leads in relationship, and that's going to be a large portion of what we talk about today. But we want to be clear that there are also ways in which women lead in relationships, albeit differently than men. So before we dive into how a man can lead in relationship, how he can create a space where his woman lets him lead, let's talk about the differences between how a man leads in relationship and how a woman leads, because they're both important.
I think that it would be great for me to describe how men lead and you to do the opposite. So I'll start with how it feels like men lead, at least in what we've learned in our processes. But the masculine leads in the three-dimensional, in the logistics of the day, in maybe something more material like the financial planning or planning the dates and things that are tangible. And so I think that the reason that it is often talked about that men are the leaders in relationship is because the ways in which men lead are more palpable, more measurable.
Yeah, with men, there is this forward movement, as you put it, of leading in the material, thinking strategically and tactically and doing the things and constantly being in motion. And when we're constantly in motion, sometimes we can miss things that are more subtle. And so that's when the feminine leadership is really helpful. So the feminine leads in the immaterial, in the unseen. And more times than I would like to admit, you've noticed a blip on my emotional radar before I have. You've named the tension in the room and asked me to look at it, right? And in that way, you lead, and the role of feminine leadership is to shine a light on what's gone unnoticed, unprocessed in the emotional realms and also in the spiritual realms.
Yeah. And I think this is really important because where the feminine leads is often missed. And so then when it's brought into relationship, if there's no understanding that, that is my strength actually, to feel what's energetically in the room that can't be seen or emotionally under the surface that can't be measured, then the man in the room might not know how to respond. And this, I think, is often where couples find these missteps, where in my past relationships, it wasn't necessarily honored the ways that I was trying to lead. My sensitivity that was really on point wasn't honored in what it was bringing into the conversation. And that seems to coincide with also where then the women aren't trusting the men to lead. Like if I'm not being trusted, I'm not going to trust either.
Yeah. And I think resentment brews when a man incorrectly believes that his brand of leadership should be split 50-50. Like in what you just described, it's like your sensitivity wasn't honored as a valuable way of leading because perhaps he was like, well, I wish you would do more of the to-dos or do more of the tactical things. I feel like that's all on me and you're not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's no awareness of, yeah, it might look like she's doing less than you, but she's working in a very different way. And unless you understand that, it feels lopsided.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems, at least in what I've experienced in my own process and also what I've witnessed in others, that that is where the miss is. And what it ends up looking like for the feminine is, okay, well, I know that I'm really good at understanding my emotional processes, but I'm not necessarily being trusted. So I'll just take care of it. And you're
Mhm.
saying the same thing for the masculine side. It's like, you know, that you're really good at these logistical, strategic, tangible tasks and you're not being supported, but there's this resentment that builds. There's this unequal energy exchange because no one's being appreciated, no one's being supported, and no one's being trusted in their process. So I'm wondering, maybe we can give some specific examples, like for you, when you're embodying your leadership, what does that look like in real time?
Mhm. Well, it's the things that are talked about often is making plans, right? Not overloading your mental plate. It's like, guys, it's really making the decisions and not asking for your input some of the times, especially when it comes to things like dates.
Mm-hmm.
Like a woman wants to be led in that way. She doesn't want to have to go on Google Maps and try to decide where she wants to go. She wants those things to be done. And she wants to just get pretty, show up, be soft, keep great company, and have everything else taken care of. So that means the bill, that means being driven, that means um, being told what to wear in some cases. And so that's one regard. And then the other ways, opening the door for her, um, talking into her internal world without having permission first, without waiting for an invitation, but stepping in. It's really the masculine role of leading is in proactiveness or proactivity. So that's what I would say.
What about the men who are listening that are like, well, when I try to pick a place or when I try to make a plan, she just wants to do it. Like, that's not actually the place she wants to go.
Mhm.
What's the issue? What's the breakdown?
Yeah, so there might be an issue and there might not be an issue. I want to say that sometimes in male female romantic relationships, this is less common than the other way, but sometimes the woman does carry the masculine pole, and that's just her makeup, is that she does want to make the plans and choose the places, and maybe the man is more in his feminine pole, being okay with that and actually enjoying that. So there's really no issue in that. The issue lies where the man does want to embody the masculine pole, and the woman, whether she knows it or not, wants to embody the feminine pole as well. And so, if in your attempts to pick the place and be decisive and have her follow your lead, there's a lot of resistance to that. It's not just a matter of let me keep attempting and maybe one day she'll finally surrender. It's actually having the conversation of, this is a capacity that I'm trying to build in myself to lead our relationship, to lead our family, to provide more experiences where you can soften into your feminine and just receive. I know that that hasn't been your default setting, but is there a world where it would feel nice for you to not have to make any decisions for a night and for me to take care of everything?
Mm-hmm.
And if she says yes, then it's like, okay, then I just want to ask. It's going to feel a little bit different. It's not something we've done great on in the past, but I'm just going to ask for your support in doing that. And next Friday, I don't know exactly what we're doing yet, but I will know exactly what we're doing. I'm just giving you this information so that you can prep your system to practice softening and trusting me. And I promise I got you.
I think that your point about how's it feeling in these interactions is really important. It's like, yes, of course, with everything that we're saying, we're using examples of really how our relationship functions, but it's all about how it's feeling in someone's body. So it's not that this caricature is what a man looks like and this caricature is what a woman looks like. It's more like this is how the masculine energy moves and this is how the feminine energy moves. And sometimes the masculine energy is going to be more stable in the woman's body in a partnership, but is it feeling good to her? Or is she resenting the fact that she's always the one doing these things? Does she like exploring and choosing the options and making the plans for the vacation and making the plans for when to pick up the kids and all of these things? Or is it feeling to her like this is always causing an issue and she wants your help, but then when you do it, you're not doing it quote unquote her way? And then that is where the conversation happens of, like you're saying, well, what if you just let me for this one day? You know, what if you just let it? I had a mentor one time say, what if you just let people hold you imperfectly and actually let yourself have the experience of being held? And that's kind of what it is, you know, like women who have not had safe men hold them before have a really hard time trusting the masculine to do anything, really. And so this is a conversation I've had in past partnerships where I'm like, okay, fine. If you're not going to hold me, well, I'll do it. I'm really good at it. I can
Yeah.
hold myself incredibly. I don't actually need you, but I'm frustrated that I'm the one doing it, you know? And so it's a practice for her to release that control and to be like, okay, I'm feeling actually a little uncomfortable because he picked this restaurant that we didn't have a great experience at last time, but can I trust that it's
Yes.
actually going to be better this time? Because the experience this time is not about the restaurant, it's about letting him make the plan.
Yeah, exactly. What she wants is to be held well and led into a place where she feels safe and soft and free and loved. And the steps that you take to get there will likely not be the way that she would have done it. And so that's what makes it hard for some women to quote unquote let their man lead, is because they want it to be done a certain way. They want it to be step 1, 2, 3, 4, and they might have a hard time believing that different steps could be traveled and they could land in a place where they feel safe, free, loved, and comfortable. So there's, two things that contribute to that happening. And we've talked on previous podcasts about relationships being 100-100, like you each take 100% responsibility. And so I want to talk into both of these things. So on the man's side, 100% responsibility is that he leads with conviction and confidence, and that he actually leads her to a place that is safe and where she does enjoy herself, right? It's a really quick way to kill trust and reduce your leadership opportunities if you lead her to a place that is not safe and she feels endangered or threatened or there's panic. And so that's the first thing. The man has to know how to lead. And the second thing that the woman takes responsibility is that she has to let him. She has to find a way to surrender control, find a way to stop micro managing. And her inability to do that and a man's inability to lead both come from their history and from a lack of skill. So let's talk about the woman's side first, of what in her history might make it hard for her to let her man lead.
So all of our wounds start in childhood, basically. Like if her father wasn't reliable with his word
Mm-hmm.
or wasn't emotionally present or wasn't physically present, it's like how her child understood masculinity came from that imprint from her father. And so that's just always going to be true. And the appearance of how relationships look don't necessarily tell the whole story. So I feel like that's a really important caveat. Like just because a woman gets along with her dad doesn't mean that he was consistent and reliable and in integrity now or before. And so that's where she's learning, how the masculine shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all of the previous partners that she was with, and so whether all of her previous partners were men or not, if she prefers to embody the feminine pole, then her previous partners were likely embodying the masculine pole. And it's like, especially in the man's body, though, because that's the mirror that the man is holding, it's like, were those men consistent? Were they reliable? Did they follow through on their word? Were they in integrity in life? And so she has all of these blueprints from men before you that are causing her to respond to you in ways that she's expecting you to respond or
Mm-hmm.
expecting you to act based on her past experiences. And something that feels really important in all healthy relationships is just the recognition of like, okay, this exists here, but it didn't start here. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
you're really good about offering to me when I'm having a response that is maybe related to a sensitivity that I'm feeling, but also maybe was like a whirlwind that I took myself on and somehow got to this place where I'm telling myself a story that isn't necessarily true in this partnership. And so recognizing basically the man knowing himself well enough to know what he's bringing to the table or not is important because then you're able to offer her in moments of like, okay, this is what I'm taking accountability for, but this actually isn't mine. And I want you to see that the way that I'm showing up here is actually different than, the way the men showed up before. And then the other piece is, if you're in a long-standing relationship, she may already have blueprints of you not showing up to
Mm-hmm.
your word and not being reliable in your leadership and not trusting yourself. And so the switch within a relationship actually I feel like is more challenging because there isn't
Yeah.
as much proof that you're not those men. There may actually be proof that you're quite similar. And it doesn't mean that you can't change the way that you're showing up, but you just have to know that there's going to be potentially some growing pains there.
Yeah. As you're talking, I was thinking of this trope of women saying, I don't need no man, or I'm just going to do it all myself. And what I hear underneath that is a frustration of never having experienced a man who could truly lead, starting most likely with her father.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a paradigm shift. It's like you were also speaking about how, the evidence that this woman has collected throughout her life has shown her that she can't be held by the masculine, that trusting the lead of a man gets her hurt. And so there has to be at least an openness to collecting evidence for the alternative. So that's the woman's side, right? We know that it started probably long before this man came into the picture. And still there needs to be a belief or a curiosity that there could be a different way of showing up. Is there anything else that you want to share on the woman's side?
I think that also the importance of how her masculine shows up. When the woman
Mm-hmm.
is playing both the masculine and the feminine leadership roles, it seems to be that this is how the imbalance occurs. It's like when there is an imbalance in the energies in the field, oftentimes the man's not taking any leadership and the woman's taking both sides. But when when a woman who feels most aligned in her femininity is also leading with the masculine pole, it's usually coming out as control. And so it's not actually coming out as healthy masculine energy, which is why when the man tries to show up with his plan and then she responds, it's with micromanaging versus like true leadership kind of hears out what's in the field and maybe readjusts if it needs to. And so I think that that's a really important point to always consider. It's like if the man isn't respecting the feminine in the room, he probably doesn't have a healthy relationship with his femininity. And if the woman is unwilling to trust the masculine, her relationship with her own inner masculine is likely skewed, and her discipline every day or the way that she's making plan is actually probably much more skewed towards control than like true discipline and devotion.
Yeah. And her inner masculine reflects what she attracts in the outer masculine.
Exactly.
The men that show up in the same way. And switching gears here and looking at what responsibility that the man has to take in not knowing how to lead. And earlier in this conversation, we were talking about some pretty superficial examples of how to lead, open the door, plan the date. And those are great places to start. But really grounding into the essence of masculine leadership, learning the concept is what's going to allow men to embody leadership across the whole relationship, instead of just in these pockets of like, okay, I know how to plan a date now. And so the essence of masculine leadership is this, this penetrative energy of going first, of being bold, of closing the gap when there's emotional tension, of naming the places where you've strayed, of when you are leading and things have gone a little bit sideways, not trying to hide it because she knows, but hey, like I dropped the ball a little bit here, and it's not a what if I dropped the ball here. It's even though I strayed a little bit, I know how to bring it back towards center, whether it's in the micro example of you're on a hike and you wind up off the trail, and then you can get the two of you back to the trail or get help if it comes down to that. And then in the macro of, I've been out of integrity in this partnership. I haven't been home or present as much as I should be. And I know that these are the steps I need to take to bring us back into resonance, and I'm going to do those things. So it's conviction, it's commitment, it is the belief. It's not so black and white that I either did great or I failed. There's a lot of space in between there, and sometimes men don't know how to hold that, and they bail out long before they need to, when there's still possibility for repair or reconnection. They would rather escape that mucky middle than learn how to or try to emerge from it.
Yeah, it feels like the essence of masculine leadership is if there is an issue that arises, can I trust you to get us back to center? Like, can I trust you to stay stable enough that we can problem solve it, or that you can, exactly to your point, take the first step to problem solve it, whether it is a financial issue or we're lost on a hike or there's dissonance in the community. It's like, can you take the first step to clean up the mess, kind of? It's like a triage, And I think that a lot of that has to do with presence and intention. It's like, okay, using the date example just because it's easy, is like, did you take actual time out of your day to plan and research places that I might like and make a reservation and all of these things? Because the more intention and planning that goes into it, the less likely there is going to be chaos on the other side. And that's really what the woman is looking for. It's like, can I trust? We're using the word safety because that's really the language that the nervous system speaks in. But like, can I trust that I'm going to follow you and I'm not going to feel chaos when I get there? Can I trust that I'm going to follow you and we're not going to show up at this restaurant and not be able to get a seat because you didn't make the reservation or whatever? And like, then having the presence in the moments when there is dissonance for you to not panic, but to you actually be able to say, oh, we have to call this person for help, or oh, there is an actual safety thing, but I can stay stable enough to manage it.
Yeah. And it's really important that it is action oriented. You know, women have heard the lip service a million times of, I'm going to be better. I'm going to make more plans for us. And so we talked about, you know, sometimes it's hard for women to surrender control. A great way to kind of circumvent that is don't tell her you're going to plan a date, because the moment you're like, I'm going to plan something for us on Friday, the clock is ticking in her head, waiting for you to confirm the plans. So don't even tell her you're going to do it. You can ask if she's free, maybe, or you have access to her calendar. Great idea. So Jessica and I do. But instead of telling her, say, hey, I made reservations for us Friday night at 7. This is the dress code. This is what you can expect. I'm going to pick you up, or we're going to leave here at 6:30. Can't wait. And that way you're creating no ticking clock in her head, no question of, he said he's going to do this thing. Is he actually? It's like, no.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah. And that creation of the container, of the containment, you know, that is also an essence of the masculine leadership. It's like there's structure. Everything is in its place. I've taken the time to make sure everything is in its place. And that's at the core of, you know, the masculine and the feminine energy. It's like the masculine is the container, so the feminine can be the experience. And if there's no structure, if there's no containment, if there's no plan, then the experience cannot be safe. And I think this is really interesting because there's a lot of, you know, it seems like always there's a little pendulum swing when something is coming back into balance. So what I've noticed, especially in a lot of the spiritual communities, is there's a lot of men living, quote unquote, in flow. Like in, you know, wherever the day takes them, that's how they're going to live their life. But it's like, okay, but that's not really your role, unless it is and it feels good to you, and then you want to be with a more masculine oriented woman. That's different, but that's not really what I'm seeing. I'm seeing men who are living their life as if they are the experience of the feminine and also desiring to date feminine women. And then the feminine woman is attracted to the fact that this man has access to his emotions and understands flow of schedule, but then over time is like gripping because there's no structure, there's no plan, there's no reliability. And so now there's nothing in the relationship creating containment or safety.
Yeah. Yeah, that idea of living in this airy flow is so alluring, and there's so much beauty to it, right? It's like when I had my feminine awakening, it was like, great, I'm just going to lay back and receive everything from life. And there's going to be serendipities. And that's a beautiful state to live in. But for me personally, as a man, I can't be there all the time. Things don't just flow to me naturally all the time. Sometimes, but sometimes, probably more seasons than not, it requires me doing the masculine thing and taking the bold first step forward, and then the world organizes around me. And so I joke kind of that these men that are living in airy fairy flow need a copper rod up their ass to get grounded.
Well, I was just thinking as you're talking, it's like, okay, there are some men who want to be like pegged, you know? And that's fine. That's great. But like, if you are not wanting to be penetrated, you have to hold penetrative energy.
Yeah. 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 You either fuck life or life fucks you if you're a man holding a masculine dominant energy. And you see dudes just getting dragged by life. Like, I don't know. Like, life just keeps like happening to me. It's like you're on your heels. You're on your heels. And you're not standing for anything. You're not even digging your heels in.
Yeah. So this I think also relates to, their trust in themselves. It's like it's interesting what's coming through as I'm talking is like, okay, well, if I don't have a lot of trust in myself, I can place all of that trust on the universe. I'll just let the universe care for me, which is good. We need to have trust in Great Spirit, but we also need to have trust in ourselves. And this is a huge miss in where I wasn't able to follow, men that I was with in the past because they didn't have trust in themselves, and some of them also didn't have trust in spirit either. But I used to say, I'll follow you anywhere, but only if you know where you're going, and even if you don't know where you're going, because we don't always have the whole map, if you can trust yourself to navigate whatever comes, great. Like, that sounds awesome. But if you don't, and I trust myself, then why on earth would I follow you anywhere?
Totally. There's a lot of men that want more confidence, and confidence only comes from clarity. There's this analogy that I share of, you're out to eat at a restaurant and a waiter comes to the table and you don't know yet what you want to order. The waiter comes over to you and you're like, I think I'll just have this one. And they're like, what side do you want? And you're like, what sides do you have? And when the waiter hit the table, you had no clarity on what you wanted to order, on what you wanted. And how did you present? With zero confidence. And so it's not clarity in like the grand plan. It's just clarity in direction of, I want to be a better man. And I know that the levers for that are developing a physical practice, are spending more time in solitude, and then actually doing those things, creating that order, that structure, and that direction for yourself, which is the prerequisite for creating that for a woman.
And I think to the point of like, you don't have to have clarity in the whole thing, but it's like you can have clarity for your day simply by starting your day in silence and knowing what the day entails and planning each week so that you have space on this day to connect with this woman or to spend extra time, and so that's part of that presence. It's part of that intention. It's like clarity doesn't just come. Clarity requires time to get clear and devoted time, not just like, oh, I'll just wait until I get a butterfly that lands on my hand and like then it will work. It's like sometimes, but really it's like you have to be, especially from the masculine pole, it's like how much time am I devoting to creating the life that I want and to tuning into the life that I want and taking the action so that then the clarity, like you're making the clarity.
Again, here we are talking about action. Like action creates clarity. If I stay right where I am in life, I'm going to gain zero new information and zero new experience. There are no inputs that would generate on the other side of the equation new clarity. There's been nothing new coming in. There can't be anything new coming out. So taking a step forward, okay, now I'm in a little bit different of a place. It feels a little bit different. It looks a little bit different. And there's new information here and there's new experience. Now we can plug those into the equation. And on the other side pops out some additional clarity or a new perspective.
And I would say that for this dynamic of like, okay, how do I build more trust from my woman to follow where I'm leading? It's like she can sense when there's change. Like it actually doesn't seem like it would take that long to at least start placing the building blocks for more trust, because it's like the new action at least will create some awareness of, oh, interesting. Like he's never responded that way before, or I've never seen him approach his day this way before. Like there's curiosity created at least
Yeah.
around the shift. And then, over time, you can see the different outputs, but even just taking different action will create some sort of shift in her response.
And when you build deeper self-trust, you're building a man that she can trust. And trust isn't binary. Trust is a spectrum. It's not I trust myself or I don't trust myself. It's usually I trust myself enough to hop off the front porch and get out in the world today. And then when you get out in the world and none of the terrible things you imagine that might happen, you're like, okay, I trust myself to hop off the porch and get in my car and drive further than I walked yesterday. And so it's about guiding yourself along these subsequent steps that require greater and greater self-trust. And then, one day, this is just an example, but it's like you trust yourself enough to start that side hustle or start that business that you dreamed about. And she's looking at you like, whoa, like he's got balls. I like that.
Yeah, he's doing it.
Yeah. And so part of that process of trusting yourself more and more is an expansion of your risk tolerance. And that is such an important part of the masculine journey, is being bold and taking risks, not needing to have the entire map before you begin the journey. And for men that are in partnership who are at this level of starting to take bigger and bigger risks, like maybe they want to take a new job and move the family, or they want to quit their job, or they want to make a business investment. Often the higher the level of risk is, the harder it is for the woman to be in support, full embodied support of that decision. But for the man to develop, he needs to feel empowered to make those choices. So my question for you is, in our partnership, how do you, or what makes it possible for you to trust me enough to encourage decisions I make that involve risk?
The easiest answer is because I trust you with everything else. Like, but as you're getting this question out, I was thinking, well, if she can't trust you to take out the trash when you said you would, she's certainly not going to trust you to invest all of your savings into a new business idea.
Totally.
So to your point of like, trust isn't binary, it's a spectrum. It's like you have to be trustworthy with the small things if she's going to take that risk and encourage you with the big stuff. I think it's Brene Brown that talks about how, trust is built in the little moments. It's not built in the big stuff. It's like, yeah, if someone is there for me with the big stuff, that's awesome. But if they're not showing up for me in the day to day, then I wouldn't even really ask them to show up for me in the big stuff. And so the first thing is, you have such high integrity with your word. It's like, when you say you're going to do something, I know it's going to happen. And it's hard for me sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, but just make sure and it has nothing to do with you. It's just, this little piece of me that still likes to micromanage sometimes because other men haven't followed through on their words. I've been promised countless things by men in my past that have never been followed through on. And, there were the words and not the actions. So that is a huge piece of the trust that I have in you, is like every little thing that you say you're going to do, and even things that I wish you do that you don't say you're going to do, you do them all, And so when there is ever a leap, I'm like, yeah, you can totally do that. Like, oh, you've forgotten your trust in yourself for a second. I got you, like for sure. I know that no matter what you say, if you say you're going to do it, it will happen, because that's the relationship that you've built with your own word and the relationship that I've built to it. And so I think that that is the key. You know, if you want your woman to trust your big ideas, you must allow her to trust the small promises you make that seem like not that big of a deal to you, but it matters. I went through this whole process at the beginning of the year, partially inspired by you, where it's like, my word is my most valuable resource. If my word cannot be trusted, then the currency of my word means nothing. And so, you know, integrity is often defined as following through on what you say, but it's also only saying things you know you can do. So if you want to build trust with your woman, it's not just following through on the things that you say, but it's actually like, you could just stop promising anything. Like, just stop saying you're going to do anything to start.
Yeah.
Because that's the easiest place to go from. Like, if you're not saying stuff that you're not following through on, then there's more trust in the field not promising anything.
And start doing it.
And then start doing the stuff. Right. And so then you start just like, okay, I know for sure that I can follow through on this promise because I'm only promising something 3 minutes from now. So it's for sure going to get done, you know, and you build your own capacity with your word to follow through on something that you said earlier today, or something that you said yesterday, or something you said a week ago. And to your point about the date, where it's like, oh, you know, am going to take you out on Friday. And then her clock is ticking of like, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? But in my experience, you know, when someone's promised me something in the past that I've asked them, it's like, when they've promised it, I've taken it off my to-do list. What a relief.
Yeah.
But the weight that falls when I realize it's not done and now it's back on my to-do list is so much worse than if I had just known all along that I was going to do it.
Yeah. I think one of the best things that a man can do for his woman is reduce the number of open loops of things that she's waiting to be done, or waiting to hear back on, or waiting for a resolution on. Do your best to create as little of those as possible. And when life requires that there be an open loop, do your best to close it as fast as possible, because she does not have the capacity to carry open loops and unresolved to-dos and agreements in the same way that you do. You know, men are typically much steadier. They can hold more of those tactical 3D things than women can. We were built for it.
Yeah. So that's my first answer is, okay, well, if you want your woman to trust you with these big risks, she has to trust you with the small things. And then the second part comes back to this intention and planning thing. It's like, okay, this is going to be a risk, but I have spent time planning, and I know as much as I could possibly know about the risk. I'm not taking this risk blindly. You know, there's unanswered questions, because that's what a risk is. But ask me any questions you have. I have the answer. And if I don't, I will thank you for asking it.
Totally.
And I will go find the answer so that you can feel as comfortable with this as possible.
Totally. Yeah, it's not like, I'm feeling so bold and courageous and masculine, I'm just gonna run into an army of 100 enemies by myself with no armor on, and I need you to like root me on. You know, it's one, like taking calculated risks, you know, not doing dumb shit. And also, you know, not approaching your woman and just expecting immediately that she's like, yes, go do that, babe. Part of her leadership is to help you see what you haven't seen, is to use her intuition and her feminine gifts to ask the questions that you haven't addressed. And so in a healthy union on the verge of a risky decision, there should be some conversation and some counseling where the woman is helping the man dial in his step and his decision even more, and her feeling involved in the decision, her feeling like her feminine leadership is being honored and requested.
I think that this is also this also comes back to how much trust the man has in himself, because in my experience, when I've tried to offer my counsel of like, these are the blind spots I'm seeing, and we need to navigate them if we're going to walk this path. The response when the man is not secure in himself or does not trust in himself is defensiveness. So now my leadership is not being respected. And we're in an argument because you think I'm insulting you instead of trying to support you.
It's defensiveness that's masquerading as, no, I trust myself so much. It's like this, he's trying to talk over you with a reassurance that, no, I do trust myself, and like, I don't want to listen to you because the plan that I came up with is good, and I promise it is. But when he's sure in his masculinity, he can actually receive feedback and critique.
Yeah, so that is, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this so often on this podcast, but it's like, if you are responding with defensiveness, it's because there's truth somewhere, most likely, especially when it's in the context of a woman showing you a blind spot, because that is her leadership. It's like she is meant to be able to see things that you can't see, because you can see things so clearly in the physical realm, but she can see things so clearly in the energetic, in the subconscious, in the emotional. And so she asks a question about, have you considered the impact of this on, the kids? Or are you wanting to do this because you're avoiding what's uncomfortable in this other place? And you're like, no, I just want to go do this thing. This is my new passion. It's like, okay, well, that just validated her insight also. But the conversation isn't available because you don't trust her. You probably don't have a good relationship with your own feminine, which is why you're avoiding your emotional processes. And there's no path forward. She can't trust your risks if you're not willing to trust her, like, check.
Yeah. In union, there's this really beautiful amplification that happens when both the man and the woman know how to lead in their masculine and feminine ways. And the way of masculine leadership amplifies her feminine leadership. And like we're talking about right now is an example of her feminine leadership amplifying his masculine leadership. Of he can see so much more clearly on all these different planes of awareness because of her counsel, right? And she can see so much more clearly because her vision, she can reclaim her vision from the to-dos and the tactics and just sink into the emotional realm and the subconscious. And so when both partners play their roles, everybody does their job better.
Yeah, and that seems to be, what's misunderstood when there isn't this confidence in whichever version of leadership you're playing in the partnership. It's like, I'm on your team. Like, I'm not trying to punch a hole in your plans because I don't like you. Like, I'm on your team. I'm in a partnership with you.
Yeah, but if there's already a hole in the boat, I don't want it to sink.
Exactly. And so the trick really is both individuals really having so much trust in themselves that they feel comfortable expressing, what their vision and plans are. But then also knowing that it's not luckily it's not their job to lead everywhere, you know?
Totally.
And so honoring where the other person's leadership strengths are and allowing them to do their job. It's like that, I feel like is such a that gets talked about in, you know, bigger companies all the time. Like if they would just let me
Mhm.
do my job, I could do this so much better. And it's the same in partnership on a micro scale. It's like if I can spend more time in the emotional realms and scanning the ecosystem for like emotional upset or my sensitivities, and we can repair them or navigate them, then the system is so much clearer for all of your work to actually produce results.
Totally. Totally. Homework.
Homework. Hmm. I think that the rebuilding trust
Yep.
is key. And so, homework for listeners is to build a trust practice. And it depends on where you are in this journey and what that trust practice is going to look like. But if you have no trust in yourself and neither does your partner, then the first thing is discerning what's one thing I can do every single day that feels manageable, and not just manageable, but honestly easy, because
Mhm.
I'm so sure I can do it. And when I do it, it is literally a prayer to rebuild my trust. And it might be so simple as like, you know what, I already brush my teeth every day, but when I brush my teeth, I'm going to use it as a trust practice so that the next thing, you know, the next layer of that would be like, okay, I do all the things I'm supposed to do, but maybe I've been wanting to meditate every day. Okay, you're
Mhm.
not going to promise yourself to meditate every day for an hour. That's inaccessible. You will burn out. But maybe you can meditate for 5 minutes every day. And not only do you do that practice, but when you show up to that practice, it's, oh, good job, me. I fulfilled this promise. So that's how you start rebuilding trust with
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And so that's great. That is the homework. And you're really speaking to men who are at the beginning of their self trust journey. And there are going to be other men listening to this who do trust themselves, who
Mm-hmm.
have achieved some impressive things for themselves. And so the question really is, how do I expand my self trust? For those men, it's going to be the riskier things. It's going to be planning a conversation to ask your boss for a promotion. It's going to be searching for another job. It's going to be stepping into environments and conversations that you haven't fully been in. So it should be like 75% excited and like 25% scary.
Mm-hmm. And I think a way to discern, you know, what that step is that you're talking about is where do I trust myself the least?
Mm-hmm.
Or where have I not been showing up for myself? And, you know, there could be like a partnership edge to this homework, but honestly, I feel that when that trust is so deeply rooted on all phases of the spectrum, there's no option but for the partnership to respond.
Totally. That's exactly right. Like, I'm not strategic about building trust with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my way of being because before I met you, I already cemented the power of my word.
Mm-hmm. One more thing.
Hmm.
Um, what's your favorite thing about the way the feminine leads?
You know, the word that's coming to mind is vigilance. It seems very masculine, but what I love most about the way, and when I say vigilance, I mean in the emotional field and the energetic field and in the subconscious and the things that I'm not so skilled at perceiving. It's like we use this analogy of like the kingdom and the castle. Like I'm kind of on the wall, like as a sentry, like looking outwards or like making plans to claim new territory. And you're like inside the throne room just like making sure that we have sanctuary, making sure that the field is clear. So my favorite thing that I love about how you lead is when I'm moving quickly and boldly, you just grab me by the arm or by the chin and remind me to slow down and remind me of what's already here. And there's a lot of beauty and grace in that pause.
Hmm. It's interesting because I was thinking a similar theme about the way you lead. Like the word that I'm hearing when you're talking is breath. Like, okay, like I create breath when you're
Mm-hmm.
moving so quickly. And that's what feels alive for me as well in this moment of like, what's my favorite thing about the way you lead? The way that you lead takes so much off my plate that should have never been mine in the first place, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that I can actually breathe and there's actually space for me to care for myself in ways that I would have been wanting to or to create, you know, like I feel so much more creative energy
Mm-hmm.
in our relationship than I've ever felt in any before because I can't access my creativity when I'm worried about structure. It's impossible. But you're so good at structure and just like everything being done. Like as soon as you think of it, it's done and I don't have to question it. So there's no open loops
Yeah.
in my mind ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep those open loops closed. Only make promises that you're 100% devoted to keeping. Be action oriented and rebuild or build your self trust. And you are going to be the recipient of all of the gifts of the feminine, her creativity, her nurturing, her softness, her unfolding. And I shared this with you before we got on the podcast, but doing those things as a man isn't about her surrendering to you. It's about creating a space that is so stable and secure that she can surrender to her own feminine nature.
Hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
All right. I love you.
I love you.
We'll see you on the next one.